Good afternoon. I appreciate your being with us today. I'm joined here by UVM Provost Patty Prelock, who can help answer questions after some remarks. As you know, the start of the fall semester is a little under 2 weeks away, and students are returning to campus under the testing and quarantine protocols we developed in collaboration with the Governor's Office, with the Vermont Department of Health, the City of Burlington, and our own internationally recognized public health and infectious disease experts. At this point, I want to acknowledge the many people who have worked to develop UVM's return to campus plan. It's one of, if not the most, rigorous and comprehensive of any such plan in the nation. And it is the result of months of careful research with input from hundreds of people, including faculty, staff, students, outside experts, and elected officials. It is posted on our Return to Campus website, which can be accessed at uvm.edu. We've communicated very frequently through written memos, personal video messages, and Teams live meetings. But I realize there is a lot of information out there, not all of which is coming from reliable sources or is inaccurate, so let me run through some relevant facts. Firstly, our students chose overwhelmingly to return to campus. They were not forced, as some media seem to have implied. We provided an at-home option. So far, about 1,300 students have taken it, and students have until August 30th to make this selection. Students returning, and there are about 12,000 of them, made their decision knowing that they would be subject to stringent testing and quarantine protocols, in addition to strict requirements regarding their behavior on and off campus. If they are found out of compliance, they will face fines and possibly suspension. We're aware of complaints from local neighbors regarding off-campus student activity. As a result, our community relations team has worked in a targeted way with the properties identified. This demonstrates how important and effective partnership with our neighbors is to a successful semester. As noted, our students want to be here. And as cliche as that might sound, our students bring a unique commitment to social justice and the environment. That's why they chose UVM. We have students stepping up to be ambassadors to work with their peers, and they're looking to our neighbors to act as partners. We're doing all we can to help neighbors do just this. This includes having a dedicated section on our Return to Campus website focused on the needs and concerns of neighbors. The site also features information on how neighbors can register complaints, including a streamlined incident reporting form. UVM is partnering with the City of Burlington on COVID-19 education circuits, which will target residences where violations may be occurring. The focus will be on education, but persistent problems could result in the issue of tickets. This will help address incidents that are not only disruptive to neighbors, but also violate COVID-19 public health regulations imposed by the state. In addition to measures being taken once our students are here in Burlington, we've had ongoing communications with them prior to their arrival. This includes clear statements about expectations regarding behavior and COVID-19 testing protocols. Regarding our testing, we're one of the very few universities conducting pre-arrival tests. They're being done through Rutgers University and Vault Health in order to prevent students even coming to campus if they test positive for COVID. To date, nearly 8,700 tests have been ordered by our students. Over 1,150 tests have been received, the results have been received, and 2 tested positive. 2 out of 1,150. Those who tested positive stayed home until they're cleared, so the system is working. Our on-campus testing regimen, which includes an arrival test and weekly tests, has assessed 955 students since August 7th, with 2 positive results. I hope you see a pattern there. As shared previously, these tests are being processed by the Broad Institute, one of the most sophisticated and highly regarded facilities of its type in the world. It is fair to say that UVM students will be among the most tested and closely monitored of any resident in the state of Vermont. And they're also being held to strict and actionable behavior standards. In addition to this, we've undertaken multiple other measures to ensure our campus is safe. We have de-densified classrooms to observe 6-foot distancing, installed protective measures such as plexiglass shields, and signage throughout campus, along with the development of public health campaigns and messaging. We're providing masks, face shields, and testing at no cost to our faculty, staff, and students. We're also ending classes ahead of Thanksgiving in order to further minimize travel to and from campus. This has been extremely expensive. We're looking at real costs in the area of $25 to $30 million for this coming year, which exceeds any relief funding we've received. The pandemic has also increased the demand for financial aid. But we believe strongly that educating our students and continuing our important and often life-saving research is worth the expense. Finally, and before we move to questions, I want to acknowledge the pressures we're all facing. There is much uncertainty, and with that comes anxiety and fear. I understand. But we need to keep in mind the facts. Yes, there are students coming to Burlington from areas with a greater rate of COVID-19 infection, but these students are being pre-tested, retested, quarantined, and as necessary, isolated. All students will undergo continual screening and testing, and if they break the rules, they will face consequences. Our students want to be here. The rates at which they chose to return demonstrates that. But if they ignore the green and gold promise, they will face the consequences. We have no qualms about enforcing disciplinary action. Keep in mind, around 3,600 of our students are Vermonters. It is true that our state has done more than most to contain the coronavirus. This is reflected in the way we worked with the governor, the Department of Health, and others to develop our return to campus plan. We hold that our Vermont students should benefit from the hard work and sacrifice that they and their families have been party to. If a safe return can be done anywhere, it can be done here. We're also trying to protect jobs, not only those of our staff, which are, not surprisingly, of immediate concern to me, but also those in our community. In March 2016, the writer and journalist James Fallows, a UVM commencement speaker and honorary degree recipient, wrote for The Atlantic an article titled 11 Signs a City Will Succeed. In it, he cites criteria, 11 criteria, and examples, including mentions of Burlington for our downtown planning and welcoming approach to integrating refugees into our communities. He also notes the value brought by proximity to a research university, and I quote, "Research universities have become the modern counterparts to a natural harbor or a river confluence. In the short term, they lift the economy by bringing in a student population. Over the longer term, they transform a town through the researchers and professors they attract. When you find a Chinese or German physicist in the Dakotas or a Yale literature PhD in California's Central Valley, that person probably works for a university. Research universities have become powerful startup incubators," end quote. So I urge the community to partner with us as we welcome this incoming class of students. We have all done the hard work to make this move possible, and we should be able to benefit from that commitment. And as we work to protect jobs and promote education, We need collaboration to ensure a successful outcome, not just for our students, in-state and out-of-state, but our community as well. Thank you, and we'll be happy to take some questions.
This is Jeff Wakefield in the Communications Office, and I'll be moderating the question session. So we're going to begin with the two television crews who are on hand, and then I'll move through and call on people in the order that you contacted me. So because we have a very large crowd, let's limit questions to one per person. So we're going to start with Lauren Granada with NBC5.
Hi, President Garamella. You mentioned that community members have already expressed concern over the students who have returned already. So have there been any reports on the site yet, and how are you sort of monitoring that? Because we also, a lot of community members have seen students out and about gathering in large groups, not social distancing and not wearing masks. So what's the update on the site and any reports that have been made?
Yeah, Lauren, I had trouble with a couple of words you were using, but I think I get the question. So we're working closely with the city, as I said, Lauren, to ensure that there are good mechanisms in place for people to report violations. In fact, just yesterday, we made the process even simpler, and there is a link on the sort of community-facing website for Vermont neighbors that it's a drop-down menu. It's a very simple way that folks can report any violations that they perceive. We need some data to follow up, and so if they can provide the information, the time, the date, the location, et cetera, and they can even upload pictures and such, certainly that is an important element of answering the question you talked about. We've also dedicated resources, funding, to conduct COVID-19 educational circuits in neighborhoods with high concentrations of students. So on the portal, community members can report concerning off-campus behavior, and our Office of Community Relations will reach out to those addresses, to those students. As I said, a form can be filled out so that we can collect the required information. And I'm urging our neighbors to please fill those out and let us know. If you don't tell us, and often you may be mistaken. They may not be UVM students, or they may be two students sitting out in their yard without a mask, and that's allowed. So we will follow up. But on the educational circuits, and this is new information for you, I would think, and I believe the mayor will be talking about the details some more. We're partnering with the city on this initiative to target residences where violations are occurring. And the focus will be on COVID-19 education, but persistent problems could result in the issuing of tickets. This will help address the incidents of the kind you're talking about, but also avoid any violations to the COVID-19 regulations. Thanks.
Dom Amato with Channel 3.
Just as a quick follow-up to what you just mentioned, when you're talking about tickets, is that Burlington Police issued tickets?
So the mayor, I understand, is preparing to address the press, and he will lay out the details of that collaboration. Well, we will be providing funding, as we have in the past, to the city so that it can assist with this kind of an educational visits to the locations where this is happening.
Okay, that was just my clarifying question.
That didn't count as your
my
question.
real question.
Okay. All right.
Talking more about students who are on campus, some have to be in quarantine because of where they came from. How is that being enforced? Are we monitoring the doors, making sure people aren't leaving? What is in place to make sure that these students are doing what they need to be doing?
Thank you, Dom. And since Student Affairs and Res Life and such reports into the Provost area, I'll invite Provost Prelock to answer that question for you, and I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So we have a couple of processes that we're using for quarantine, and as you know, there's a difference between quarantine when you do not test positive or we don't know what your results are, and isolation when you do. So our students who chose to do quarantine here in Vermont came this past weekend, and we have a particular dorm area for them. They have to stay in their rooms. There were 200 that came last week, and our vice provost for student affairs had a Teams meeting with them, explaining them again what quarantine is all about and what they need to do. They are delivered food, it's grab and go, and so they'll have to stay in quarantine for 7 days until they take a second test, and if they pass that, then they can move.
I don't know if this is on. Is there somebody at the door? What's stopping them from leaving?
So as you know, in our residence halls, we have resident advisors who came the week before and are trained, and residence directors. And so they monitor the halls and outside. And so if we have students who leave, they're immediately said, remember, this is the commitment that you're making, and this is why you have to be here. And students, I just got a message from our vice provost, Annie Stevens, and she said the students have been appreciative, compliant, and really thoughtful.
Next up is Alec Fleury, who is with the Burlington Free Press and I believe also with the Vermont Cynic.
Hi.
Hi.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, indeed. Go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you so much for holding this press conference. I just want to clarify, well, one quick clarification and then a question. I just want to clarify the numbers. So 200 students have returned to on-campus quarantine. Where's the, and 950 students have returned in total. Are the 950, are some of those off campus as well?
Not sure where that number is coming from, but we'll invite Provost Prelock back. The 200 number is correct.
So as you know, I don't know where that 950 number came from either. The week before our students came, several athletes came, as well as residence advisors came, and so there were about 165 of those. And then there have been 2 times when students off campus have moved in, both June 1st is kind of a turnover for rentals, and then August 1st is a turnover for rentals. And if students came from out of state, their expectations are also they have to quarantine. A lot of students quarantined in their homes, and we have a new group of people students that are coming in about a week, and they have chosen to do their 14 days of quarantine somewhere else and not on campus. And those students are also part of our pre-arrival testing, whether they've been in Burlington all summer. Several kids have jobs and have been here since June, working, doing internships, et cetera. So I don't know the exact number that you quoted, but you know, about 60% of our kids have been in Burlington for since June.
Thank you. My apologies for the number. I thought I heard President Garamella said it earlier, but
The number that you're probably referring to is the number of vault tests that we've already received for pre-arrival, and the number of broad tests that are being conducted here once they're on campus. And the broad test numbers include our medical students who started earlier, as you know, the resident assistants that Provost Prelock was talking about, et cetera. So sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
That's okay. The dashboard that's on the website that updates the numbers weekly, is there a specific day where those numbers will be updated?
Thursdays. Yeah, we've been updating those on Thursdays. And, you know, I should also clarify that we are in touch with the Vermont Department of Health and the city of Burlington on sometimes an hourly basis. And so we are reporting the numbers that you see on there every Thursday. But of course, if there were issues, which we hope there won't be, we certainly are very regularly in touch with the authorities. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. We're going to need to move on. Ann Wallace-Allen with VT Digger.
Anna?
Ann, are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I saw I think there were 6 cases on your website under your sort of COVID information page today. And I was wondering how often you update it and whether you're going to plan to update that number more than once a week.
Yeah, thank you. We are updating those numbers once a week, as I just said, but of course we're in touch with the Department of Health and keeping the city posted as needed.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Why not update them more than once a week? Because it seems as though that you could, and that information would probably be salient as far as a lot of people in town are concerned.
Yeah, we could, and at some point we may reconsider it. Again, we had a 0.2% positivity rate. If you look at our vault tests and our broad tests, we just simply don't have that many cases. We hope it'll stay that way, and we also don't want to be reporting numbers that maybe came in late last night that need to be still vetted, or some are inconclusive, et cetera. So we just think that there's a little bit of a lag sometimes to getting the numbers pinned down, and a weekly reporting seems about right. We do report the numbers into the Department of Health every day, and they are included. Those numbers are included in the state's totals.
So I noticed it was 5 students and 1 staff member in that case. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Was the staff person or the faculty, were they associated with the students in any way?
Provost Prelock will take that, I think.
Thanks, Ann. As you know, we can't give specific information about the cases, but there were 5 students. They were living in town, and they were here prior to move-in, and they're asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms showing. The staff member has been working on campus in a particular activity. I have no knowledge that that individual has been engaged with students. There's no relationship that I know between that staff person and the students. I think it's also important to know that as we looked at the numbers over summer, one of the most important things about this virus is to make sure that we can manage the spread, and we're really confident that we can continue to manage the spread as we did this summer when we had positive cases and there was no spread because of the intense contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine that we engage in. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Now Derek Brower with 7 Days.
Hi, yeah, I'm wondering if the Green and Gold Promise is considered a legal agreement.
Sorry, please repeat the question. I heard Green and Gold Promise and not the rest of it.
Sorry, Suresh. I'm asking if the Green and Gold Promise is a legal agreement.
It's a good question, and I don't know that I have an exact answer for you, but I will say that our students really overwhelmingly want to come back. They want to do the right thing. They're all planning. We've heard from hundreds of students and their parents where they're talking to their roommates and thinking about, hey, let's not allow XYZ into our rooms and so on. These students really want to come back. They're seeing what's happening in the rest of the state, rest of the nation, and we're truly, despite the few that may be errant, from all indications, it's very clear to us that our students want to come back and do all they can to do the right thing so that the university stays open. So every one of our students is required to sign the promise. As you know, they're welcome to stay at home if they're not comfortable coming back to campus. So I guess that's my answer to your question, that they're all anxious to do the right thing and ensure that we stay open.
Some schools have explicitly noted that they're on their website that the agreements, their pledges are not legal agreements. Is there any reason why UVM can't do that? No,
and I guess we've done what we've done. We're not changing the promise this late into the game. Thank you.
All right, next is Liam Elder Connors from Vermont Public Radio.
Hi, so we saw yesterday University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill decided to switch to completely remote after 130 students and 5 employees tested positive. That's a school with almost 30,000 people at it. And so I'm wondering how many students or staff would have to test positive at UVM before you decide to switch to completely remote learning.
Liam, I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. I'm assuming, knowing how you follow these things, that you were at the governor's press conference, and this question was posed to Dr. Mark Levine. And I think he said quite succinctly that we're not UNC. If there's any place in the country where we can open, we have the best chance of opening safely, it is in Vermont. We have taken so many more precautions. We're spending so much more money, and so much more planning has gone into this, and a reliance on science. You know as well as anyone, Liam, that there are areas in the country that are not following scientific advice. Everything we have done is tied to what the governor has mandated, what Dr. Mark Levine, as our Commissioner of Health, has advised us, and our own amazing faculty experts in public health and infectious disease. And so with the pre-arrival testing, the day 0 testing, day 7, day 14, et cetera, our contact tracing, which is really, we had a long presentation from Dr. Michelle Pavola, who's our resident doctor who takes care of our students. We looked at the contact tracing protocols we've developed, and they're top of the line. The quarantining, the supportive isolation, the money we've spent in classrooms to de-densify, and also in residence halls. So I think you will see more stories like the UNC story. All of our planning was done so that we don't have the same repeat here.
So are you saying, you have done a lot of planning, as you just mentioned there and many times before, but have you done any planning for a scenario like this? Given all the planning you're doing, wouldn't it be irresponsible not to plan for a situation like that?
Sure, we've got hundreds of people planning, Liam, and the university will continue to monitor, hour by hour, really. We've been monitoring the circumstances on our campus, in our community, and in the state. And as those circumstances evolve, we're working closely. We will continue to work closely with our public health and infectious disease experts on our faculty and the Department of Health, and we'll determine appropriate steps. In fact, I was having a conversation with Dr. Rick Page, who's dean of our College of Medicine, and he said, look, no number or no amount of scenario planning will actually prepare you for the particular thing that could happen. So we are watching this very carefully, Liam. We're being more responsible than any, at least as responsible or more responsible than any. And I feel quite well prepared, and that we have the mechanisms in place to make those decisions as the situations arise.
All right, thank you, Liam. Kate Vanny with the Cynic.
Thank you so much for having me on this conference. My question surrounds the Student Code of Conduct, where it lists multiple punishments for students who commit egregious violations, ranging from a $250 fine to probation. Though the site doesn't specify if the student will receive all of these sanctions or just one, could you please clarify this, along with explaining what the probationary period looks like, and if a student suspension is from the university and all classes or just campus?
Hey, Kate, just wear masks, do your distancing, and we'll keep you here. But they're sequential, they're progressive. But let me ask Provost Prelock to come and answer your question. Thanks for the question.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for asking that question. So as you look on the Green and Gold Promise and our conduct framework, there's a couple of things that happen. The first step is always education. So let's say a non-egregious act is, I forgot my mask on my way to class. So we say, go back to class. We know this was not something that you wanted to do. If they go into a classroom and say, I'm not going to put on my mask, I don't want to do that, then that becomes a little more egregious. Or having a party of more than 25 people and not social distancing, et cetera. And so there's several examples on the website of that. But the step is education first. The second step is if you have a repeated offense, you get a fine, and for non-egregious, it's $150 the first time. For egregious, it's $250 with probation. And probation just means you're on notice. And so if it happens again, then we move to suspension, and that means you are suspended for the semester. We're hoping we don't have to go that route, but we want students to understand that we're really serious about this. But we're also working on positive behavior support. So we're using student ambassadors, and we're using our nursing and med students who are actually doing videos and providing support in the community to let students know why this is so important and why we want to keep you on campus.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Rathke with Associated Press. Lisa, are you here? Lisa, are you muted by chance? Okay, let's move on. Next is Tim McQuiston with Vermont Business Magazine.
Thank you, Jeff. President Garamella, my son actually is just received his saliva test yesterday. And as you know, Dr. Levine is less enthusiastic, is one way to put it, on the saliva tests. Are follow-up tests being done with on-campus PCR tests, or how is that being administered, and what do you have to say to the somewhat controversial saliva tests?
So, Tim, thank you for the question. Our tests, both with Vault, which is the pre-arrival, and the Broad tests are the ones that the Department of Health uses. They're the PCR tests, so they're the gold standard. We're not using anything but those. And Provost Prelock may have a follow-up. She's actually a health professional.
Thanks for that question. I think there's some confusion about the PCR tests. So there's antigen tests, which are less effective than PCR tests. And the PCR tests really look for the virus in the nose, the mouth, or any area in the respiratory tract. And then the non-PCR tests, the antigens, are really looking for pieces of the virus in proteins. So those aren't as effective. As you know, the pre-arrival test is a saliva test that is observed by a health professional using telehealth. And then the Broad test that we're using on arrival is the anterior nasal testing. So they're all coming from mouth, nose, respiratory tract. That's what's important. So the PCR tests are what are most important. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, that kind of wraps up our questions. So I think we're all done.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. We're trying our best to keep you all informed. Please wish us all well, the community, the university, and the parents and the students, for a successful fall semester. We've done all the planning. Now let's get going, and we'll keep you informed as there's more news. Thank you very much.